And I'm going to share my screen. I'll share my that screen one. Yeah. So, okay. So we are going to be talking about data analyst. Who's a data analyst? So the question here is going to be, who is a data analyst? So I'll just say data analyst. Forget the doctor's handwriting. Okay. So who's a data analyst? Well, let's look at it like this. As a data analyst, you are on a journey. Okay. You want to look at all of the data that is generated every day, and that data is available to different kinds of organizations. We have usually two types of data or two types of data analytics. We are going to have transactional data. So your data can be transactional. That is data that is involved in day-to-day activities. Okay. So today, businesses collect different kinds of data. And despite the fact that they collect different kinds of data, there's still a lot of challenge around making sense of all of that data they have collected. So that's where the data analyst comes in. And what the data analyst does is he wants to help the business to use that data that they've collected uh, and to generate information from that data in a way that is going to impact the business positively. Now, the reason for doing this would be that it will be allowing the decision makers that depend on that data to be able to use that data to make informed decisions. Okay. And that is because the faster businesses can make these decisions, the more competitive they can be. And of course, the more they can use all of that data to their advantage. So data becomes very, very important in in unlocking the value that businesses have buried within their operations. So as a data analyst, let's look at it as if you are on a journey. You are on a journey from helping businesses to make sense of their data to be able to positively impact their operations. Okay. So what now will we call data analysis, for example? Now, look at a data analyst as somebody that uses data to tell stories. So I'll just change the color here. You tell stories with data. That's basically what a data analyst does. Okay, so he uses all the data to tell stories. Now, in doing this, he embarks on a journey. Okay, so first he wants to identify the data, prepare the data, clean the data, and transform the data. So that's the first thing a data analyst will do. He will prepare the data. Now, he uses that data now to tell stories. In the process, he's also going to model the data. Now, modeling the data would mean he will be creating, or she will be creating, relationships with that data. Okay, you are often going to see that there are relationships buried within the data. The data would have some form of relationships, and it is the responsibility of the data analyst to discover these relationships in order to be able to model the relationships. And then, of course, the third thing a data analyst will do is to visualize the data. That is to make pictures out of the data. Of course, to give the data a human face. I like to explain visualization in that regard. Okay, so you visualize the data so that you are going to make the data, well, more captivating to the business. That's very, very important. So there are some core things you are going to be doing in visualization, and then you are going to then analyze the data, you are going to be using tools like DAX, which we are going to talk about, is data analysis expressions. You're going to be doing all of those kinds of things in your journey. And then you want to manage the data. So you want to take things like creating workspaces, and then you want to also embed some security to your data. So these are the things, the core things that a data analyst will do. Okay. Now, apart from this, we are going to also look at a data analytics overview. Now, there are 5 categories of data analytics. Okay. Because, of course, the businesses use data to make decisions, and these decisions are based on the stories that the data tells. So, data usually, we are not using it to full capacity in today's business. We are not using data optimally enough. And we're going to see how we can do that. So data analysis becomes a very important aspect of all organizations. Okay. And of course, we can use data to tell a lot of stories about how our organization is performing. Okay. We can see from data if our organization is profitable. We can know the condition of the market from our data. We can identify trends. We can even identify sentiments based on all of the data that we've got. Okay. So these are the 4 core components of analytics. So we are going to start with the first one, which is descriptive analytics. Now, descriptive analytics helps us to answer questions about what happened. So the core thing here that descriptive analytics does is it tries to find out what happened. And in trying to find out what, it uses historical data. So it tries to use what has happened before in answering the question, what? So now the core techniques of descriptive analytics will be to summarize. It does a lot of summarization of our large data sets. So those are some of the core things that descriptive analytics does. Sorry about that. Let me just get my phone out of the way. Okay. So descriptive analytics describes from the name. So it tries to help answer questions about what happened, and it uses historical details to be able to do that. So, for example, they say, hey, how much profit did we make in the last quarter? Of course, descriptive analytics will answer that. What was our profit situation? Okay. Now, the next thing we will be looking at is diagnostic analytics. Now, diagnostic analytics will try to, well, make more sense of descriptive analytics. Okay. And it will take the findings from descriptive analytics to dig deeper to try to find the reason why that happened. So, diagnostic analytics is going to be asking the question, why? Why what happened in the first place? Okay, so we are going to have things around this. We're going to be looking at things like KPIs here, key productivity indicators. So it's going to take the findings from the descriptive analytics, dive deeper to find the cause of what happened in descriptive analytics. And of course, it will investigate to discover why that happened. So that's what descriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics does. That takes us to the third one, which is prescriptive analytics. Now, prescriptive analytics techniques will still use the historical data to identify trends and to determine if they are likely to occur. Okay, so I tried to say, maybe will it happen again? So that's basically the question predictive analytics is going to answer. So it will use the data analytics tools to give insights into, well, what is likely going to happen in the future. And it looks at two kinds of data. It looks at what happened in the past and what currently is happening at the moment, to try to predict if it's going to happen again in future. That's predictive analytics. And then we have prescriptive analytics. Now, prescriptive analytics will use insights from predictive analytics, and it will use that to take data-driven decisions, allowing businesses to make informed decisions of what to do in a face of uncertainty. So prescriptive analytics would try to tell us, what can we do? So that's what is going to tell you what we should do. Of course, should we have specific scenarios. And then the peak of it is the cognitive analytics. It helps you to learn what might happen if our circumstances change, and how we will be able to handle the situation should our circumstances change. And it's going to be using all of the previous data analytics to try to do that. So it will use knowledge bases, and then, of course, it will add these findings into the knowledge base for future inferences. So cognitive analytics, of course, is usually where we are now. Of course, it's going to be using things like ML, things like AI, and things like data sciences to try to, well, tell us, well, how we should behave, what is likely to happen, what is going to happen, what we are most likely going to do to stay successful should any of all of those things happen. Now, we have different roles in data analytics, different roles. I'll just click and talk about roles of data analytics. There are different data analytics roles. Of course, we are going to be looking at just a few of them. I'll just go ahead and let's just talk about this way. So roles of, or roles in data. Let's just call it that. Roles in data. So there are lots of data roles, different kinds of things you can do as a data analyst. So let's see what some of those roles are. Okay, so there are different kinds of roles. We are going to be focusing on, of course, the data analyst role. But the data analyst role is not the only role. First, let's start with the first one, which is the business analyst. Now, so what does the business analyst do? And who is the business analyst? And most importantly, how is the business analyst different? Okay, now there are lots of similarities between the business analyst and the data analyst. So let me call this business analyst versus data analyst. So what's the difference? And there's a lot of confusion around these two titles. Some organizations fuse the two together and make it into one. Other organizations choose to keep the two roles separate. So, but what's the difference? Now, a key differentiator between the business analyst and the data analyst is what they do with data. So, what do they do with data is the difference. Now, a business analyst tends to be closer to the business, knows the business more. So that's the key thing. A business analyst is usually closer to the business. Okay. So, and is a specialist on interpreting data that comes from visualization. So a business analyst is more interested in interpreting the data, while a data analyst, of course, we're going to see what it does. So the data analyst and the business analyst roles sometimes can be held by one person. If your organization has a very compact data team, usually the business analyst and the data analyst could be one person. So what's the difference now? Now, the data analyst is the person responsible for doing all of the tasks that we listed at the beginning. That is profiling the data, cleaning the data, transforming the data, designing and building the data models, enabling and implementing all of those analytics that we talked about, creating dashboards and reports. So usually, if the two roles are separate, the data analyst sits in the IT department most of the time. But the business analyst doesn't necessarily sit in the IT department. While the data analyst is closer to the technology, the business analyst is closer to the business. Okay, so that's the core difference between the two. But that's not all the roles we have. We have a role called the data engineer. So, who is a data engineer? Now, a data engineer is primarily responsible for using different kinds of data services. Those data services could be on premises. When we say on premises, that means the data tools are available within the organization. There's a place called the data center where these data tools are available. They are hosted on servers, and those servers are managed by the organization. So they use either on-premises tools or cloud-based tools. Now, when we talk about cloud-based tools, we are talking about tools that are available in third-party environments, maybe available on Microsoft, which is the core of what we are going to be talking about, in Microsoft Azure, or any of the Microsoft on any of the Microsoft cloud environments. We also have solutions from other vendors like Oracle, like AWS, Alibaba, and all of that. But we're going to be focusing our discussion on Microsoft tools, of course, because Power BI is a Microsoft tool. So the primary responsibility of a data engineer would be to use data services to be able to do things like ingesting the data, to, for example, egress the data, to transform the data, and of course, to do all kinds of things to data coming from multiple sources. So that's what the data engineer does. So to do that, they are going to set up technologies that could be on premises or could be in the cloud, and they are going to manage and secure the flow of data from multiple locations. So a data engineer basically is the man that makes your data look good. Your data can come from different kinds of sources. It could come from an unstructured source, a structured source, and all of that. So it's going to bring all of the data together, and it's going to, well, make the data look good, and of course, send it off to the location where that data is going to be used by other people. And those other people that will be using the data will include the data analyst, the data the data analyst, and the data scientist. So who is the data scientist? Now, the data scientist will perform advanced analytics. Usually, the data scientist will be using programming, is very, very versed in programming languages. Is going to be using advanced statistical models and all of that to bring out solutions from that data. Okay. And that's who a data analyst is. And then, of course, nowadays we hear of the AI engineer that does all of the other things we know of. They are the ones that are responsible for using AI related tools to be able to solve problems. So these in short is what the data these are some of the roles we've got in data. So what are we going to be doing here? We are going to be using Power BI. We are going to be using Power BI to do all of these things. And let's see exactly what Power BI is. So I'll go ahead and launch Power BI, and then we will just browse we'll look through the Power BI interface, and we're going to see exactly what Power BI does. So that's what we're going to be using. That's Power BI there. We'll just allow it to launch, and we will be seeing what we can do with Power BI. I'm going to go ahead and sign into Power BI. I'll just sign in here. I'll put in my email address, and then I'll put in, or maybe I should, the signing in right now is not exactly important. So I'll just keep this for now. And let's go to our Power BI environment. I'll just open a specific uh, environment for Power BI. And that's basically what Power BI is right there. So that's Power BI. We see that the Power BI has got different views. So that's the tool we are going to be using to analyze our data, to look at data analysis. So we see here we've got different uh, uh, menus. We've got the home tab, and that gives us a lot of options here. We've got the clipboard, we've got the data group, we've got the queries group, the insert group, the calculations group, the sensitivity group, the share, and even Copilot. In insert, we've got different kinds of things. We've got the modeling, the view, the optimize, and all of that. But basically, Power BI has got different views. And the default view here is the report view. Okay, so the report here, the report view is where we are going to be creating all of the reports, which we are going to be spending a good deal of time here. So that's the report view. We also have the table view here. The table view, of course, allows us to view our data typically in the tabular form. We've got also the model view. The model view is a view where we are going to be creating relationships and all of those kinds of things. And more recently, we've got the DAX query view, which is a relatively new view, what you are going to be talking about. This is where we are going to be creating all of our DAX queries. Okay. So that's basically the Power BI in short. So let's see what we will do today. First of all, what we will do today will be to bring in data into Power BI. Now, Power BI allows us to import data from different sources. We can see here we've got all kinds of sources. We've got a database source like SQL and Access. We've got other sources like Exchange, Salesforce, SharePoint, SAP, even Facebook, Excel, and all of that. So we can get data. And of course, we will work on this data, and at the end of the day, we will transform the data in a way that looks like this. So that is the core of what Power BI allows us to do. We can get data from any source, and we can use that data to create, to do analysis, to create reports, to create dashboards, and all of those kinds of things, to perform calculations and all of that. And it's going to now give us the insights. So I'm going to go back to Power BI now, and we are going to see how we can get different kinds of data, for example. So I'll go to Power BI again. I'll just go and uh, open Power BI here. And the next thing we want to do is we want to get data. So basically now we have a blank report here, which we can go ahead and save. I'll go ahead and save as. I want to save it as, I want to save it to this computer. I'll browse this device. I want to save it to, well, let me save it to Power BI desktop. I can save it, or I can just save it to my desktop environment. And I'll just call this sales analysis. You can save it anywhere. And take note that Power BI has an extension. The extension of Power BI is PBIX. Okay, that's it there. So I'll go ahead and save. So I have a blank Power BI file called sales analysis. There's nothing in that file. I want to start to work with the file. And for me to be able to work it with the file, I've got to pull data into the file. Okay. So to pull data into the file, I'll go to the home tab. And within the home tab, from the data group, I can click on get data here, and it allows me to pull data from different sources. We can see we have Excel sources, we've got semantic model sources, and if the data source is not visible from any of those places, I can go ahead and see, browse to any source. Power BI has got well over 200 connectors, as in we can pull data from many data sources. We can pull data from files such as Excel files, XML files, PDF files. We can pull data from databases. We can pull data from Microsoft Fabric and many other places. But for the purposes of this demonstration, especially as we just completed using SQL, I'm going to be pulling data from a SQL database. I could do that by just coming here to pull the data. And if I click on that here, it prompts me to pull the data. Or I could come here and also pull the data. Or I could come here and still pull the data. Either way, we are going to be doing the same thing, but I'll just, for simplicity's sake, I'll click on SQL Server. Now, for my computer, just like for yours, there is a SQL Server instance that is available. And since I want to pull from that instance, I'll just type localhost, meaning that the SQL Server is installed on the computer that I am using. Okay. All right. So here I have the option to either import or to use direct query. We are going to talk about that much more later. Okay, I want to go ahead and either use import or direct query and all of that. And I can go ahead and click on OK. So it goes on to make a connection, see, to the available databases that I have installed on SQL Server. Okay, so we can see we've got a number of databases here. It tries to make a connection to those databases, and it goes to load the data from those databases. So we can see here, we've got a database, and if we expand the database, we can see different kinds of tables from the database. Right there, we have AdventureWorks Fabric, which is another database. And then we've got Tailspin Toys, which is another database here. Okay. Now I want to connect to this one. So I'm going to expand this one. And from there, if I want to view a particular table, I'll just click on the table without checking the box. And it gives me the details of the table here. And we can see that we have a table that's got called DIM employees. And if we scroll down, we can see all of the details within the table right there. So we see we've got the details within the table. And if I now want to query the table, I'll click on the checkbox next to the table name. I can go ahead and select all of the tables that I am interested in. Okay. I go ahead and select all of them. And I'll just scroll down and look for one more. That will be reseller sales, for example. Yeah. So all in all now, I want to pull all of the data from table 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, I think we should have 6. Let's see, there should be another table. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There should be another one. Employee sales territory is what I'm looking for. Okay, so we have employee sales territory. We've got product. We've got reseller. We've got sales territory. Okay, so 6. All right. So now, what I want to do now is I want to retrieve the data from all of those 6 tables, and this data is currently resident in uh the database, but I want to pull that data into Power BI. Okay,
Uh, please
are
don't
you?
say something.
Yes, go ahead.
Um, I don't think I have that Adventure Works 2020 you're using. I have 2022, and it doesn't have all the tables that you're using.
Okay, just watch on. I'm going to drop that particular database in the shared folder so that you can pick it up and you're able to follow through what we are doing. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, so we've pulled all this data now, and now you have 2 options. The option would be to load the data. Now, loading the data means you are loading the data into your data model or your semantic model, as it's now called. But what we want to do is we want to work further on all of that data by cleaning and transforming the data. So go ahead and click on transform data. Now, clicking on transforming data is going to open up Power Query like it's doing now. It opens up Power Query, and we can see that for all of those tables that we selected the checkboxes against, we can see the data in those tables are now loaded as queries in the query pane in Power Query. So notice that this is a slightly different environment that we have. Now, Power BI is what is in the background. This one that opens up here is Power Query. So let's not confuse the two. This is Power Query, and the other one here is Power BI. Now, notice that in Power BI, there's no data there yet. And that is because we did not load the data into the semantic model, which is in Power Query. Where we have, which is in Power BI, where we have our data now is in Power Query. The reason is we are not just yet ready to load this data into the semantic model because we still have a number of operations that we want to do on this data. Okay, so we can see we've got 6 queries equating to the number of tables that we loaded. You see, we have dim employee sales territory. Dim, by the way, means dimensions. Okay, dim product, dim reseller, fact reseller, and dim sales territory. So these are the different kinds of tables that we have. Okay, okay. So now we see all of those details here. So if we select the first table or the first query, we see the details of the query here. Okay, so this query here gives us details about employees. It stores one row. Each row represents a record for an employee. So we can see the employee key, the national ID alternate key, the first name, the last name. If we scroll on and on, we are going to see all of the attributes of this data. We can see the middle name, the name style, the title, and all of those kinds of things for this particular employee. Okay. Now, at the bottom here, we see the status pane. We can see we've got 33 columns and 296 rows. So This here at the bottom here is the status pane, bottom left. Okay, so that's the status pane telling us that there are 33 columns for the dim employee table, and there are 969 records or rows. Okay, so we can scroll all the way to the end to give us details of what we've got within that employee. Now, we might also want to look at the quality of the data that we have in this table. And to do that, we want to go to the View tab. Now, if we go to the View tab and we want to look at the quality of the data, we're going to find out that a lot of the results we are going to get from our data analysis is dependent on the quality of our data. And within Power Query, which is the window that is open here, we can actually see the quality. So if we go to the view pane, we can go ahead and click on column quality, and it gives us the details of the quality of our column. Okay. Now, if we go to a specific column, for example, let's go to the position column. Where's the position column? We can actually go to it directly, but I just want to scroll down and let's see. Maybe it's the very first. Okay, so we can actually go to column here and type position. Okay, if we go to the position column, it just takes us there. All right. So here it allows us to see some details. It tells us the error level, the percentage that is empty, the percentage that is valid, and all of those kinds of details. Okay, so that gives us a snapshot of the quality of all of our columns. We just go there and select, and we see the details. If we hover over it, it tells us that the validity for this is 100%. No errors here, no empty records here, and all of that. So that gives us the details here. Now, we could also look at the distribution of our columns. So again, we'll be doing that from the View Ribbon tab, and we'll just go ahead and click on column distribution. Now, the column distribution gives us the details of how our columns are distributed. Notice it gives us what is called distinct and unique. Okay, it tells us we have 290 records, of which 285 of them are unique. Okay, so it gives us all of the details here. Now, when the unique and the distinct counts are the same, it means that the column contains unique values. Okay, that means we have, for example, 290 distinct records, of which 290 are unique. So it gives us all of those details as well. So you want to watch out for some of those things too. Now, when you are modeling, it is important that some tables have unique columns. Now, these unique columns will be used to create relationships. And of course, one of the relationships that we're going to be looking at in future is going to be one-to-many relationships. For example, one mother can have many children. Okay. But of course, many children, one child cannot have many mothers. Okay. So we are going to be looking at all of those kinds of things too. So we've looked at one query. Let's go ahead and look at another query. Clicking on the query, of course, is going to give us all of the details that we see from that query as well. We can go ahead and click on another query, and of course, it gives us all of the details we can see from that query as well here. Now, if we want to view column values, on the View tab from inside the data group, we want to click on column profile. So if we go ahead and click on column profile, it gives us some details details of our profiles here. Now, if we go to the reseller table, which we currently are, the reseller table contains one row per reseller. Of course, what a reseller does is to sell or distribute or add value to products. That's what typically the reseller does. So it gives us all of those details here. So we can also see, we've seen the column profile. If we go ahead and click on the column profile, we can see the details right here. If we go to the business type column, we can begin to see some of the challenges we have with our table here. We can see within the value distribution, if you look carefully, you are going to see a column called warehouse. Okay, we can see values called warehouse spelled as one word and warehouse spelled as two separate words. We begin to see some of the challenges we have with our data, of course. So if we hover over this, we can see warehouse. We over that, we can see warehouse. This is likely going to be a data entry error, which we are going to correct as we move on. So going to sales territory, we can still see lots of things. We can go ahead and look at each of the values. We can see the distribution. We see the column statistics. We have 11 counts, 11 records, of which 11 are distinct and 11 are unique. We have the minimum value of 1. We have the average, the maximum value of 11. We've got standard deviation, even and odd. So it gives us a quick snapshot of how our data is, of what is happening in our data in this scenario here. Okay. So if we go to the next table here, we can see that we've got a number of equally important things going on. Okay, so we can see all of these things. So that gives us a quick snapshot of some of the things that we have going on in our table. Again, if I want to just turn all of these things off from the view tab, I just go ahead and turn everything off, and our data is back to what it looked like. Now, we've seen how to import data from a database, but a database is not the only source where we can pull data from. We can also pull data from Excel files. We can pull data from CSV files. So let's see how we can pull data from these other data sources. So I'll go ahead now. I will go to the new query from the Power Query Editor window. So I'll go to the Home tab right here. I can go to, see, new query. I can go to new source. And then from here, I can select text or CSV. And then I'll navigate to where that detail is. So I want to go to the where we've got that data stored, and then I want to navigate right there and scroll down to, let's see, all files. I don't think I have my data downloaded. So if we were in that data, we can navigate to the location where our data is. And then, of course, let me go ahead and download our data. I don't think I have it right here. So let me go ahead and download it. I'll go to a browser, and I want to go to my data source file and download the data. For example, let's go ahead and do that. My data is going to be in another location. Ah, la, 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 la. Okay, so I'll go here. All right. So I'll go ahead and download. Don't worry, I'm going to send you the copy of the data. So that's my data there. I'll just go and unzip it. Okay, so we had it here before. So how come I didn't see it? Okay, it's in the downloads folder. All right. So we'll go to the new source. I'll go to CSV, and then I'll go to downloads. And yeah, I want to go ahead and select the data source. And the data source, we can see we've got two CSV files there. I want to select reseller sales target as my CSV file. I'll click on open. And in the same way, we can see the details of the CSV file there. We can scroll through it. I'll just go ahead and click on OK. And we can see that we've got the reseller sales target now as a seventh query. Okay. So we can see all of the details there. We can see the reseller sales as the seventh query with all of the details there. And we could also go ahead and do the same thing for the color format.csv. And that is also available as our eighth query. So we've pulled 8 tables. 6 of them came from a SQL source. The other 2 came from a CSV source, and we have all of those queries available. Okay, so that's I don't want us to push this too hard, being the very first day. I think at this point we can pause. And if you've got a question, it's very important for you to ask questions if you do not understand. If you've got a question, I'm going to give the next couple of minutes for you to ask whatever question that you want to ask. So go ahead. If you've got a question, go off mute and ask your question. Any question? So basically, what we've done today is we've pulled data from these data sources. We've pulled data from a database, in this case, from a SQL database. And then we've also pulled data from an Excel file in form of CSV. So that's what we have done. And we moved the data using Power Query. But of course, we've not loaded the data yet into Power BI. So that's basically what we've done today. We've seen how to move data using Power Query. That's basically what we've done. Now, in the next class that we're going to have, we are going to now see how we can begin to transform the data. So basically, what we are going to be doing is we'll be doing what is called ETL, which is called extract. That's what we've done. And then the next thing we are going to do is to transform. And then once we are transforming, we are going to load. So we've done the extract part today. In the next class, we are going to be doing the transforming. And then, of course, if we are happy with the transformations, we are going to load the data into Power Query. And then we will begin the actual process of data modeling and all of those kinds of things. And then we'll move on to see things like creating hierarchies, creating relationships, creating date tables, and all of those kinds of things. We are going to be seeing all of those kinds of things as we move on. So this class is not going to be longer than 1 hour. So if there are no questions, I'm going to end the class. I'm going to go off the stream, and I'm going to stay on for another 5 minutes in case you've got any question you wanted to ask offline. So thank you very much for joining, and I am ending the stream. Okay.